Yes people, so today in this video I'm going to be teaching you how to fill the space within your tracks so that they're sounding a bit more full. I mean, we've all been there when we've been working on a tune and the vibe's there, but it just sounds like something's missing. So in this video I'm going to be showing you 5 methods which should hopefully help your tunes sound more complete. So think of a song in 3 ways of measurement. There's the frequency spectrum, which is essentially the pitch of the sounds from low to high. You've got the stereo field, which is essentially where the sounds you are hearing are in the mix. So for example, are they out wide or are they central? And then finally you've got the depth field, which means to say how close or far away things are within the mix. Now with all of these methods, the changes that you'll hear within the track will be subtle, but they do all add up and fill in that space within the track. All of these changes you're going to be seeing I've done within Ableton, however you can do them in a DAW of your choice. And all of these methods I'm going to show you, not everyone will agree, so if you have your own methods of filling out space, feel free to put them in the comments. Of the methods that I'm going to be showing you, some of them you might use already, some of them you might have never heard of before, but either way, hopefully there's something in this which will help. The first method is layering. Okay, so let me just show you some layering quickly on this track. I'll quickly play it for you now. So I'll start with the layering on the drums. So this is before the layering, which is just Isotope Trash, which is like a very fancy distortion plugin. And this is what they sound like after. I'll just boost that layer quickly just so you can hear, because it's quite a subtle change, because as you can see I've dropped it down to -10 within the mix. So that layer, it's got some distortion on it, but it's Trash has also got this feature called Convolve, which again is adding some of that sort of depth and body to the track. So if I take the Convolve off, that's just the distortion. If I was to play just the Convolve, it's giving the drums some character and some body. So if I was to move on to the bass now, the layering on the bass, this is what the bass sounds like before. And this is what the bass sounds like after. Okay, so on this bass, I've got 3 return layers. The first is an erosion, which is just adding some white noise, some crisp, so on its own that sounds like this. Again, that's at -24 in the mix, very faint, so I mean that's what it sounds like cranked up. The second layer is reverb, again, which is going to be adding some depth and some width. And then finally this layer is just some distortion, but I've cut the frequency, so the only ones that are going to be heard are between the sort of 100 to 200 mark. So that's just adding some low end to the bass sound. While staying on the bass and the drum side of things, another way you can make your track feel a bit more full is by putting stereo images on certain parts. So for example, on your snare, if you have the low end of your snare quite mono, and then as it gets to the high end, it branches out. That can really help the snare sound a lot more full within your mix. You can do the same with the bass as well. Do be careful when playing around with stereo image, because you don't want things to be getting lost, and you don't want things to be sounding a bit weird either. So again, as I've mentioned before in a previous video, your ears are your best tool, so use them. Okay, so looking at the stereo image on this track, I'll start with the bass. So this is what it sounds like before. I mean, as you can see there on the imager, like there is absolutely nothing. So I've just quickly added some width to it using the dimension expander from Zephyr Records. So there isn't really too much here. I mean, we've got 12% on the sides and 20% on the dry wet. But if we just compare that to before, see that there's a lot more happening compared to when it was just very central in mono. So also on the snare drum of this song, I've added some width to it as well. So I think it was quite wide to begin with. So if I just turn the staring imaging off quickly, as you can see there, it's filling up a lot of space. I mean, if I turn the dimension expander on, I mean, the size on this dimension expander is at 0%, and the dry wet's at 28, so this isn't, again, adding too much to it, it's just a little nudge to make it a bit bigger. So if I was to compare that to being completely mono, it just sounds, very central, whereas it's got a much bigger size to it. And you might have also noticed that I've put the bass mono switch on, and everything 500 Hz and below will be mono, so as you can see there, it's very central on the imager. But the reason I've done this is because, generally speaking, with the lower end, you want to be a bit more careful with how wide you're making things. So this is just a bit of a top end spread out, whereas the chesty hit that's like happening from the snare will remain mono. So a third way that you can make your track feel more full is by utilising vocals and chants. Now with jump up, obviously, a lot of the time there'll be a vocal sample before the drop, and then as it drops, craziness happens. However, you could use that vocal sample that has just played to help fill out the actual drop. Okay, so coming back to this track, I've used the vocal sample that happens just before the drop to again help fill out some of that space during the drop. So the vocal sample in question here, as it happens, there's this delay which I believe is using the Ableton Echo plugin, and I've increased the resonance and the feedback, as what that does is that causes the delay to just keep happening. So I mean, this happened for over a long time, and as you can hear, and so this is what this sounds like before and after, so without the delay. Take your time, it's all fast. And then with the delay. So yeah, it just fills some of that space within the track. And then also, you've got chants, which if you listen to a lot of like trap music or whatever, you'll hear haze on the offbeats and things like that. You can pretty much do the same thing with jump up. Okay, so here's how a chant can help fill out space within a track. So this is what it sounds like before the chants are added. And this is what it sounds like with the chants added. I'll just boost the volume of both of those chants that are there, because we've got one, like a breathy one, and then obviously the hey, which is a lot louder. So if I just boost them and then have them within the mix just for reference. So these sort of chants, which are in a lot of like trap music and stuff like that, are good when, there's a break in the bass, so the chant happens when there's that gap. So a fourth way that you can fill out space within your tracks is to have a noise layer, which could be either from a vinyl emulator. So I have this plugin here, Isotope Vinyl, and if I just bring up this mechanical noise, that's the sort of thing you could be adding into your tracks to fill out space. Or it could just be some noise from a sample that you have. You could put this within the mix, usually tucked down quite a bit, but it can subtly help fill out the space without actually distracting the listener too much. So also on the Guys Like Us track, I'm filling out some of the space using some noise from a recording of gameplay for a Grand Theft Auto game. So in the mix, like very faintly, is this recording of the character. There's some noise that fills out the space. So if I play it to you with it boosted, I mean, you can hear that quite a lot. So if I play it as how I've got it in the mix, and then if I play it without, you can hardly hear it. And funnily enough, on some plugins, you will get this effect happening even if you're not realising it. I'll just give a quick example using Radiator by Soundtoys. So although you can't hear anything now, if I put a compressor on and really ramp it up, you'll begin to hear that there is things happening within the background. And so again, if you've got this sort of thing on some of your sounds, it will be filling out some of the spaces even if you aren't realising that it is. And finally, the fifth way that you can fill out space within your track is using a very classic method in Jump Up, which is called the Fuzz Layer. So, anyone that remembers Hedex's sample and preset pack, which came out in, I think it was about 2016, will know exactly what I'm on about. So the Fuzz Layer is essentially a square layer with the high end pushed, not concentrating too much on the low end so much, and it's just there tucked in the mix to fill out space, and it sounds a bit like this. So let me just show you quickly how to make this Fuzz Layer. I've got this initialized patch on Massive, but you can do it on any synth really. So we change this to be a square wave, and then we just want to take out the lows and boost the highs. And it's really as simple as that. And then what I like to do for good measure is I will take out the low end, so it's not messing with any of those low frequencies. And I'll round off the highs as well. And there you go. So you can also do something similar to this, in that you could take your sub, send it to a return channel, whack on an erosion or something that generates white noise, distort it, and then cut off the low end, and then you've got something that's acting similar to this square Fuzz Layer. So also in my Tune Guys Like Us, I've got a sub fuzz layer. So if I just solo the sub, this is what it sounds like. What we're interested in is this erosion part here. So as you can see, there's the erosion, which is causing the white noise. Then we have some distortion from the amp plugin, and then cutting off the low end and boosting the highs up a bit. Okay, and that is it. That is 5 ways that you can fill out space within your track. I hope you've enjoyed it. As ever, if you've got any comments, feedback, or if there's any other sort of tips you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.